Guys, next up, we're going to go to under the radar locks. Who is a lock to make this roster? Under the radar, this is our opinion, obviously. Hopefully, obviously, it's an educated opinion. So, Destin, I'm going to start with you, man. When we talk under the radar locks, all right, who is a guy that you are going to go with?
Yeah, so I mean, mine is a guy that I think he's been consistent. I think he is versatile as a linebacker. We just mentioned Forrest Ryan and how this linebacker room is going to be a fun one to see how the cuts go down to. But JoJo Domann is a guy that he just screams a Ballard type move on these fringe roster cuts. I mean, I think JoJo is going to be able to play on the special teams. I think he's going to be pretty versatile as a backup linebacker if needed. I think you could move him to any of the three spots in a pinch. I think he's probably more so utilized in that Mike or Sam role in that backup spot. But I just think JoJo offers so much versatility, the athleticism's there, and the kid just has such a high motor. I heard early on at rookie camp that he was turning heads, and I think he just kept doing it during training camp. He may have not had the flashy game like a Forrest Ryan did this Saturday, but I think the thing about JoJo that puts him apart above these other linebackers in the room that I think have all been impressive is that he's just not gone away. He's not had those quietness. He's not had those lows of lows. He's just been there every training camp practice, being JoJo Domann. And I think he's going to carve out a role in the NFL. In a normal year, where this was the post-COVID year, this was the most draftees entered the draft ever, I do not think JoJo Domann is an undrafted free agent in any of the recent drafts other than this year.
High praise on the former Nebraska Cornhusker. That's their.
Yep. Hey, to go from being a Cornhusker to living in Indiana, I mean, doesn't it just seem perfect?
Doesn't it just seem perfect? What's the difference, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got to. The Hard Knocks is on right now, and one of the quotes that just came out is when Campbell was asked about what he thought of Grand Park and being here. He said he felt like it was the field of dreams, and I didn't know if we should take that as a disrespectful comment, hilarious, but just seemed very accurate.
The field of dreams. That is interesting to say the least. Yeah, going from Nebraska to Indiana, man, feels like home, just a different state, right? So my guy I'm gonna go with, I saw some good things from him on Saturday, and I think the reasoning I'm about to give, I think he locked up his spot, honestly. And I'm gonna go with Tony Brown, the cornerback. I think what he showed on Saturday, he was playing in the slot a lot, and I think that can be valuable. I think that was a big thing to Ron Miles and Gus Bradley, because what Tony Brown showed, he could play in the slot. If for whatever reason, if the staff feels stronger about Isaiah Rodgers on the outside more than the inside, they could prioritize Isaiah Rodgers staying on the outside. And if something ever happens, for whatever reason, Kenny Moore has to come out of the game, you can put Tony Brown in there. And if like last year's corner depth was tested throughout the year, Tony Brown can slide in the slot. You can still keep Isaiah Rodgers on the outside for that specific reason. And what Tony Brown showed in the slot, because he had a great game, honestly. I think he sort of locked up a spot because of that reason. I think we could see a situation where Tony Brown could be that, maybe probably not the next slot guy. I think they could possibly, and I could get both of your guys' take on this. Could they go with Isaiah Rodgers as that second slot, or do they want to prioritize him to the outside if something was to happen to Kenny? Because I think Isaiah Rodgers' speed could be better utilized on the outside. But I did like what Tony Brown showed on Saturday. He showed a better game, and I think the slot fit him a little bit more. That's what, his body has, his athleticism that fits the slot corner route. He played outside majority of Buffalo, didn't have the greatest game, bounced back in Detroit. Well, obviously the game was in Indianapolis. So against Detroit, and played in the slot. That was a good what's the word I'm looking for? That was a good change by Ron Miles and company. So I will give them that. Tony Brown, I feel like, is an under the radar lock.
My under the radar lock is I'm gonna go with a man that I've been talking about for a long time. I actually fell in love with him when I was doing my prep to get ready to go to the Senior Bowl. I was catching up on a couple of guys that I didn't recognize, and he was one of the names. I'm gonna go with Sterling Weatherford from Miami of Ohio, of course. The kid, when I watched his tape, he would look like a man amongst boys. The size, the way he was moving, he looked like a special talent. And when I got a chance to see him up close, it just confirmed everything I saw on tape. And since he came to Indianapolis, once they switched him to linebacker, I thought that was a natural fit for him at the next level. He is phenomenal. You can see him just figuring out the position. He's still learning literally. He's only been playing the position for a couple of months now, and he's already figuring things out. He's making plays. He's flying around out there. Him and JoJo, man, those two guys at linebackers are guys that really surprise me. Chris Ballard always finds a way to get those linebackers, whether they're undrafted free agents or late 6th, 7th round picks, man. He always hits on these guys. We know they have to be great special teamers. That's a must before they're able to get snaps. And making this roster, man, it's not easy as it used to be. The undrafted free agent streak was snapped last year. It's not a shoo-in that the undrafted free agent can come in and make this team. So by me stepping out on a limb and saying he's a lock, that just shows you how high I think of him and what type of talent I truly think he is.
And again, I think this just comes back to, like my lock just recently was JoJo Doman, and we shared all those reasons as well. And I think Sterling Weatherford is just another example of the COVID year causing this to become the most draftees that entered their names in a long time. So these guys, I just don't think normally are going to be undrafted. Sterling Weatherford, a lot of the reason may have been that teams just felt like he had to switch to linebacker, being a safety for the majority of his career at Miami of Ohio. So that's probably has something to do with it. I guess my question to you about Weatherford, do you feel like he's going to be best used linebacker wise? So obviously early on, if he makes the roster, special teams will be where he plays a lot. But if he was going to make a move in the linebacker room at any point and be a linebacker in the NFL long term, do you feel like the will spot is going to be where he's going to make his money? That's where I feel like that's where Weatherford's going to put his stamp on if he's going to do it.
Yeah, I think the will is the best spot for him. Similar to the way Shaquille was used last year. Seeing Shaquille and Bobby switch made me think that maybe that Sterling will have some versatility and be able to play Mike as well. But I think his best position is the will. The will typically gets matched up on some of those tight ends a little bit more. It has to do a little more in coverage, which is fine with his safety background. I think that's going to be a big benefit for him in that role. I see JoJo as more of a Mike type of linebacker, extremely smart guy, getting the plays in, getting everybody lined up. I think he will excel in that role. And I think Sterling is the prototypical will nowadays, man. You really want your safety type will guys. That's the new role. I even seen the Chargers using Derwin James as that. Of course, Derwin James is an exception to the rule, but that's the direction that the new NFL is trending in, getting more speed on the field, going away from traditional linebackers in that will spot. And you want a guy that can run and cover in space, man. That is the evolution of defenses in the NFL. And I think this is a good way for the coach to get ahead of the curve. Whether Gus Bradley is here or not running those cover three, wherever you want to go defensively, you need the athletes. So whether you're playing a cover three or you're playing a cover one or you're running two high shells, regardless, you're going to need those linebackers that can move and can play in space. You need them to be multiple. You need them to be versatile. So I love Sterling Weatherford for this roster.
Yeah, linebacker seems like it's the strongest room on this team, man. Like I said, Chris Ballard and company know how to evaluate that certain position. And I'm happy for it because a linebacker, man, those are probably one of the most important players spots on the defense. Most of the time, the communicator, the play caller is playing that position. So and obviously Shaquille Leonard is the signal caller for the defense. So good things all around. JoJo Doman, Sterling Weatherford, it's all good in the linebacker room.
So Rashaad, you didn't weigh in when me and Mike were talking about the possibility of keeping 7 linebackers. I think and I kind of said it earlier, and I was just curious of what your thoughts were now that we have the time to talk about it. But keeping 7 linebackers, I think, is just an underrated idea that's not being talked about. I think a lot of people think you have to only keep 6, but looking at the roster, and I mean, you heard us go through it. I mean, I'd rather keep 7 linebackers than 3 quarterbacks. I'd rather keep 7 linebackers than 4 running backs. Where the roster is right now, I'd rather keep 7 linebackers than 4 tight ends.
Right.
So I was just curious to hear your perspective on it. If you think 7 linebackers deserves a little bit more conversation here, because I just don't think it's being talked about enough amongst the fans, amongst other content creators, even.
Yeah, man, it is something that actually haven't came up. And to say Ballard has actually kept 7 linebackers before. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. And there's a legit argument you can make, especially guys like Forrest Ryan, that he's showed up and he's played well when he's played. I know he got banged up a little bit, but the special teams guy, his name's slipping, Brandon King, I believe.
Also got hurt early.
Also, another guy that got nicked up. Like, these are guys that if they can make plays and become core special teamers, you definitely can sneak them onto the roster. I was actually talking to a AFC defensive line coach, and he was saying that he always try to make one of his defensive linemen become core special teamers, which is rarely happens. You have to be an athletic freak to be a defensive lineman and be a core special teamer. But that was always a way for him to sneak an extra guy onto the roster, an extra guy he has a chance to spend more time with, to get in his room, and if the same thing goes with the linebacker position, if you can find guys that's core special teamers, the more you can get, the more likely you is to sneak extra guys into your room and onto the roster that can contribute, because you have to be able to contribute on special teams to get a look. So keeping 7 linebackers, if 2 or 3 of those guys is solid core special teamers, then it can easily happen.